إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستغفره ونستعينه ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. الحمد لله الواحد الأحد العزيز الجبار الأول الآخر والظاهر الباطن هو الحي القيوم وهو الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا وهو الذي خلق الإنسان وعلمه البيان وهو الذي علم بالقلم وعلم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا من علمك وأعطنا من حكمتك وآتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه وخليله أدى الأمانة وبلغ الرسالة ونصح للأمة فكشف الله به الغمة وتركنا على المحجة البيضاء ليلها كنهارها ولا يزيغ عنها إلا هالك. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت وباركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one true God who created each and every one of us. He is the creator of the heavens and earth and everything in between. He is the God of all things. He is the Alpha, He is the Omega. He is the omniscient and omnipresent. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except that one true God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is indeed His prophet and messenger, servant and slave. Allah's peace and blessings be upon him and his family as Allah has blessed Ibrahim and his family. My dear beloved brothers and sisters, I advise myself and each and every one of us, the most important thing that you and I can do in this transitional life is to become people of taqwa. People who are in the most sincerest way God-fearing. In a fear that's entirely different than the way we fear bullies in schoolyards or dark alleys or oppressive governments or oppressive tyrant or any of those, because those fears are associated with hate. The things that we fear, we hate. The fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is entirely different. So when we compare those two, when we say taqwa Allah and describe it as fear, it's very important to differentiate between the two fears, because oftentimes we associate the negative type of fear that we have for other things. And this is entirely different. We yearn for the day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us that grace to be in Jannah, to meet that Creator who created you and me. We are ready and obedient to follow the commandment of that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that God who created you and I and gave us everything that we have unconditionally, every blessing that you and I have. So if we become people who are mindful of that responsibility and duty that we have towards worshiping that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that one true God, then we succeed in this life and we succeed in the hereafter. Brothers and sisters, those of you who are interested in history, when you read the history of Islam, you will find that it took this religion to establish civilization, world-class civilization, about 200 years. Never before has the humankind established a civilization in such short time. And never before were people who were scums of the earth, as Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu used to describe in the Asr Jahiliyyah, how people were, who were illiterates, who were desert-dwelling tribes, who were fighting each other all the time. The stronger, the mightier were always right. And they got their ways, and the weak was always ran over or abused or exploited. From that kind of condition to civilized people who governed almost half of the world at the time. SubhanAllah, this is something to reflect on. Not for the interest of bragging about we're Muslims, as many of our brothers and sisters do. Just merely bragging about how we were once upon a time. But how we were once upon a time should give us an opportunity, you and me, to reflect. How did we get there? How did those folks, the first group of Muslims, manage to do that and leave a good legacy for humanity? Whereas us, huge in numbers in current days, in so much disarray, the numbers of the Muslims, the population are growing high. Our understanding and fulfilling what we have learned from the Prophet ﷺ and applying those core principles of this deen is in decline. Imagine that. The numbers are going high. The principles and the appeal that Islam had is in decline. And I'm not talking about the negative, those who are just throwing all kinds of negativities as Muslims and all of that. I'm talking about in reality. In reality. So where did we go wrong? Well, my dear brothers and sisters, all we have to do is just look at the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. Then we will understand that the Prophet ﷺ taught the principles of this deen. He was not focusing on hifd and practice without understanding the meaning. Hifd is very important, don't get me wrong. But the superficial aspect of the deen was less emphasized. The Sahaba would spend time and time just learning few verses, but they had to apply it on themselves first. Before they can even carry it to other people. Before they can even say, this is what I want to invite you to. They have to reflect that first. So if you have a person who has knowledge of big verses and hadith and all of that, but in reality his life does not reflect all of these things that he is saying or she is saying, that defies the teaching of the Prophet. That defies the teaching of the Prophet. Now, he did not separate people, those who were honorable people, who came from big families, those who were the elders, who were respected because of their age and all of that, those who were from special ethnic groups or what have you, those who were wealthy and those who were poor. He was not given the assignments for those whom we favor naturally. Unfortunately, throughout the world, people who come from big names, big families, who are wealthy, who are educated, tend to get more than the people who are on their opposite. But the Prophet ﷺ was never like that. He taught equally to people.